This is a story of where fairy tales come from. You might recognize some of these characters. And then again, you might not. In any case, here comes our heroine now.
Yo, the price has gone up. 800.
That's a ripoff! And your junk's crap anyway. Anyway, let me tell you about the heroine of our story. This all happened during a slightly more magical time, when things were often more than they seemed, and often they were less.
Weavers, werewolves, and witches are strongest deep within the forest, Velma.
Don't be such a brat, Vel.
The voice that replied appeared to come from the girl, but had a certain, textile quality to it.
Stop calling me Vel. And why am I always the one doing the errands?
Only you could call visiting your friends errands.
They're not my friends, Patches. And Gran asked me to bring them a delivery.
Whatever you say, Vel. Whatever you say.
The girl glared angrily at the direction of her eyebrows, making her slightly cross-eyed, but not enough to be selling her bathwater. Her name was Velma Weaver, the heiress, which sounds like the name of some fancy exotic snake. Heiress. Her name was Velma Weaver, the heiress to the Weaver family. They were renowned for their enchantments and their ability to create magical armor across many of the kingdoms. But not in those other kingdoms. You know the ones I mean. The ones where they steal your baggage at the airport, and you end up doing dirty favors to save up money for a ticket to go back home. But then you discover you like doing dirty favors. You were always kind of a strumpet. Well, not you, but the hypothetical character in this hypothetical scenario. Anyway, as I was saying, the Weavers weren't particularly famous in those kingdoms. And so it was the fate of every new weaver to apprentice with their grandparents in the deepest parts of one large forest or another. This had something to do with magical energies and the clusters of forests, or something. Anyway, Velma Weaver was near the end of her apprenticeship. What is also quite convenient indeed is that while I was busy delivering this lovely exposition, our heroine made it out of the forest. As the forest receded around her, she found herself walking along something that can charitably be referred to as a road. The road led her up a small hill where her friend's house, her not friend, Glenn Pigsby's house marked the outer edges of the nearby village. It wasn't a particularly good village. It wasn't a particularly good house. In fact, it wasn't a house at all. It was more of a dirty, terribly built, and slightly dilapidated hut made out of hay. But on that day, the hut lay in ruins, or the equivalent of ruins for something made out of hay. Velma dropped the bag of supplies and looked around, spotting the magical tracks of something that she recognized far too well. The tracks weren't human.
Belle, are you okay?
Velma stood motionless.
We have to follow the tracks. We have to save Glenn.
It was happening again. She nodded and followed the trail to the remains of another hut, this one made out of wood. Her hands were shaking. Her face felt unusual. Trembling, her fingers inspected her own features. She was smiling. She pulled her hood forward to cover the unnatural grin upon her face and continued along the makeshift road. Finally, she reached a giant house made of stone atop the neighboring hill. In Fairyland, geography didn't make much sense from a geologist's point of view, but if examined closely, would often prove to almost mold itself in ways that facilitate beautiful storytelling devices like repetition or alliteration. The wooden doors of the stone house on top of the third hill were shattered. Velma ran through the doorway and a high-pitched shriek pierced the air, splitting some of the less fortunate atoms in two.
It really is happening again. Just like 8 years ago.
Before she knew it, her feet were running in the direction of the shout. Broken furniture and household trinkets carpeted the path. She rushed into one of the larger rooms to find the three Pigsby brothers cowering in the corner. Then, a voice that sounded as if it belonged to someone that liked to chew iron made her jump.
Oh my. Is this your girlfriend?
The werewolf grinned viciously, licking his lips.
Kind of bony, but probably tender.
Velma pulled back her hood and his grin melted faster than the snot under a school desk during a hot summer break. In the corner of the hall, the Pigsby brothers gave a collective family gasp. The werewolf, which was clearly quite big and quite bad, turned towards the three brothers and whispered conspiratorially.
Psst. Your girlfriend seems to have the crazy eyes. Boys.
No! This isn't me! I'm in control. I'm the needle. And the thread.
Velma's eyes snapped open, clear as summer lightning.
Those three dummies! Why didn't they just run towards the village for help?
A part of her thought the Pigsbys actually deserved to get eaten for their stupidity.
Eat 'em!
Velma!
You heard me. Eat 'em!
The werewolf looked stupefied, which was the moment she'd been waiting for. Velma lunged forward, kicking Glenn out of the werewolf's grasp. The big bad wolf rushed at Velma, his paw cutting through the air in what could lazily be described as a basic swipe attack. Thankfully, Velma was able to dodge, accidentally sparing the artist drawing the characters in the story a whole lot of extra work. The young weaver grinned triumphantly and pointed needle, the weapon, at the werewolf's face.
I'll make you suffer, you mangy cur!
Huffing and puffing is what I do. Sometimes I blow a house. Sometimes I sniff some glue.
What?
love ducks.
With a huff and a puff and a buff for some stuff, the werewolf inhaled sharply and released a strong gale of breath, bogged with halitosis. You could even go as far to say his attack had kind of an effect on their area. But since everything in the house was thoughtfully nailed down to prevent theft, everything remained exactly where it was. Again, completely accidentally sparing the artist drawing the backgrounds in the story a whole lot of extra work. As he stared down at the duck of Velma, the werewolf took out a cylindrically shaped object from his back pocket and bit into it.
Rise and shine. It's Ganja time.
Velma's rage finally reached an absolute peak, allowing the writer to wrap this encounter up quite nicely so that we can get on with the rest of the story. She shot forward and thrust needle through the cylindrically shaped object and into the werewolf's mouth. Final huff, and more importantly, a final puff, the big bad werewolf collapsed onto the floor. Velma's boot kept meeting the unconscious werewolf's face. Each kick accompanied by a hollow thud. After a few kicks, the brother previously referred to as Glenn finally summoned the courage to speak.
Vel?
The girl turned to face him, and her smile made Glenn recoil.
Vel, control yourself.
This was fun. Let's do it again sometime, Glenn.
This is no time for your twisted sense of humor, Vel. We must get back to your grandmother and tell her it is happening again.
Velma eyed her hood disapprovingly.
I have a better idea.
She lifted Glenn by his collar.
Listen here, Pigsby.
Vel, control yourself.
Tell me where this mongrel came from, or else I'll...
Vel?
We didn't see him.
And what?
He blew it down.
Mine too.
Velma let go of Glenn's collar. The pudgy man fell to the floor, rolling like a squishy ball of yarn towards his brothers. 3 huddled like hens. Or, well, pigs. It's a well-known fact amongst the magically inclined that spirited articles of clothing have terribly poor manners. As in, none. This is mostly due to never having anyone explain the whole concept of manners to them. As far as enchanted clothing was concerned, it just kinda popped up one day. That it was handed off to some destined hero, fated descendant, or heroic wizard, and it simply did as it was told, but often in a rather rude way. The enchanted items that didn't were, well, disenchanted. Yes, life was no bed of roses for an animated object. In fact, one of the more famous rulers in Fairyland was gifted an enchanted bed of roses, which, after a week, escaped into the wilds and joined a rogue gang of roaming bedroom furniture. Legend says that to this day, they wander about the countryside, scaring unsuspecting villagers in the middle of the night. Kind of spooky. Oh, and that famous ruler was soon deposed for exhibitionism. Apparently, he went mad and started walking around naked, claiming to have the finest clothes in the land. Most people go through life thinking that their job is terribly dull and boring, but they never stop to consider how much worse they would have had it if they were Conan's loincloth. However, Conan's loincloth aside, all of this doesn't actually apply to patches. You see, weavers regard enchanters in the same way a blacksmith regards a baker. I mean, your pastries taste fine, sir, but have a taste of my axe. Clearly, axe conquers cake in the game of Axe Cake Blacksmith, which is, of course, the Fairyland version of rock, paper, scissors. In magical terms, enchanters are basically minor level wizards. They can alter the properties of an object by tapping into magical dimensions. If you wanted to enchant a pair of pants, for example, to maybe do some cleaning about the house, or hug you at night because you're feeling lonely, and the fear that you'll stay alone is creeping deeper and deeper into your mind, which is slowly driving you nuts and bananas, which, incidentally, is a tasty and healthy meal alternative. And, oh my days, how can I eat so much crap? Someone, Take these Doritos away from me. Where was I? Yes, weavers and enchanters. So, to enchant a pair of pants, for whatever reason, an enchanter would tap into the magical ley lines and pluck a bit of magic to animate the pants. The result of this was an abundance of self-cleaning dishes and brooms that swept all day by themselves. Sadly, no one stopped to think of all the jobs that would be lost. But anyway, weavers, unlike enchanters, use the power of magical dimensions to enhance their needles and threads, and weave completely self-aware clothes. They were pretty much the Elon Musks of their time. And to bring this all back to the story, now would be a good time to mention that Patches, being more than a mere enchanted cow, had a kind-hearted but extremely socially awkward personality. He was completely unable to deal with moments of stress or sadness. This caused him to twerk and boogie on top of Velma's head to get her attention, which was absolutely not cool. Unless the person viewing it had a fine appreciation for the art of twerking or boogieing. When he was done dancing on her head and everyone's attention was clearly on him, he lowered himself down over Velma's face and whispered.
Well, there's someone watching us through the window.
Velma ran out of the house and felt the presence of what was bound to be the next boss in the story.
Well, that's a cliche introduction if I ever heard one. Mr. Villain, whoever wrote you must be getting sloppy.
Quit it with the meta humor already.
But isn't saying that quite meta too, Vel?
Velma threw an angry look up at Patches, then turned back to the man.
Are you one of them?
Tongas raised an eyebrow.
Are you behind what happened inside?
Maybe.
Velma growled again.
I don't like your riddles, creep.
Creep. I like fiery women.
Velma cringed, which didn't seem to have any effect on Tongus.
Join us, my darling.
Hey, listen here, buddy. I don't know who you think you are, but Vel is with me.
I like that. What a pretty name. I am Tongus Christopher Jacobs III.
You're a ton of gas, all right.
Tongus frowned.
I cannot move you whilst listening to the mithering of your companion. I shall wait for you at the mansion on the other side of the forest.
The Pigsbees gave another collective gasp.
You're not going anywhere, creep.
Oh my, so clingy. Pace yourself, milady.
The man jumped backwards. Then, in the 10th of a blink, he disappeared behind the corner of the house.
I guess we're going to that guy's mansion, Patches.
Maybe we should tell your grandma first.
For once, you have a point, Patches.
So it.
Velma couldn't hide the surprise on her face.
How did you know? And why do you sound Canadian all of a sudden?
Maybe I'm not your gran. Maybe I was eaten by a Canadian werewolf.
Very funny, Gran.
Oh, Granny, why are your teeth so big? What a silly girl you were, dear.
This isn't the time, Gran.
It's always the time, my dear. It really couldn't be anything else.
Rena, the kid isn't kidding.
Ugh, I'm not a kid.
What do you want me to do, Patches? I gave her the needle. Now I'm just an old woman.
You can pretend with the rest of them, but you can't fool me, Sabrina Weaver.
Will you two shut up?
Grandma Weaver and Patches looked at Velma expectantly.
I'm going to fight them, Gran. Even if you don't...
No, that's fine by me.
Rena?
What? She has the gift. It is her duty and her destiny as the protagonist.
But...
If if you weren't always so overprotective, you'd see that, you daft old hat.
Ugh, enough! I'm off, Gran.
Prick 'em nice and hard for me.
Velma grinned, spun around, and ran out into the dark forest with less than good intentions for anyone of the lupine variety. The wind howled louder than the various canines that populated the forest. Velma found herself wanting to stab at it. Couldn't it just whistle? No. Tonight it was howling. It had decided on howling, and it was certainly giving its all in the howl department. She arrived at the mansion's gates in a short paragraph's time, so really there was no opportunity for her to get sweaty or wound up. The place was ablaze with an opulent assortment of antique lamps. There were so many of them, in fact, that a quick mathematical equation would prove it took all of Granny Weaver's pension to keep the whole production lit for a day. Not that she paid for it. That was just an equation. Anyway, enough math. Velma climbed over the gates and continued towards a particularly peculiar light in the distance.
You know, this could be a trap.
Will you please stop talking?
Yes, of course. Stop talking. You're just an article of clothing. Who would ever listen to anything you have to say, Patches? Shut up.
Well, well, well.
Tongus crept up from the shadows once again.
Darling, you came. No one hits on girls like Tongus.
No random creep was gonna give Val a tough time. Not if she had something to say about it. This is a good time to point out that the usual etiquette when a creepy guy named Tongus lunges at you is to jump out of his way. But Val had been having an absolutely rotten day. The creep's lunge intensified, which only helped to increase the impact with which Vel's boot connected with his nether regions. Tongus whimpered for a brief moment before regaining his composure. The smile that appeared on his face could have provided an endless supply of oil for the cooks of Fairyland.
I am the peanut butter. You're the jam. Time for us to make a sexy sandwich.
I'll show you a sandwich. A knuckle sandwich.
This time, it was Velma who lunged at Tongus, but the creep slid out of the way with the grace of a goblin shark. Interestingly, the goblin shark is ranked as the second creepiest animal alive, after Tongus, of course.
Hiss. Hiss.
What are you doing?
Tongus smiled the smile of someone that is sure what he will say next is bound to be absolutely hysterical.
I am a snake, and you have charmed me.
The cringe on Velma's face threatened to leave her wrinkled like a Shar-Pei for the rest of her life.
Be mine, my saucy squirrel.
Thoroughly overwhelmed by the power of cringe, Velma launched another frantic attack at the creep who once more moved out of her way with splendid ease.
The dance of love is never paused on the account of darkness, my sweet cabbage.
Ha! I think you'll find you're quite wrong there, creepo.
Tongus finally noticed the fine silken threads Velma had been leaving behind with her attacks. The thread was now tangled around him completely. And so, with a final mighty pull, Velma split the creep in two from the crotch up in a very flashy and spectacular way that our accountant wouldn't allow us to animate. With the creep defeated, Velma continued onward into the glowing mansion.
Oh my, aren't you a feisty one?
Well, behind you!
Velma spun around just in time to see what can only be described as the quintessential Disney princess in her early 30s. Only this one had a sharp metal claw attached to her hand.
This must be the mistress that creep kept talking about.
He was super creepy, wasn't he?
And that butt chin!
I know, right?
Oi! Don't get all chummy with the enemy, you oversized sock.
Do you hear how she speaks to me?
So are you his mistress or not?
Ravishing Gregoria Frederick, first of my name, beautiful and cute, marrier of monsters, maker of werewolves, and main villainess of Spooktober game entries.
How Game of Thrones of you!
Are you responsible for the mad werewolf attacks?
Ravishing lifted her eyebrows, appearing to be the very image of innocence personified.
Oh, only indirectly. And they were incomplete. They turned into wild beasts and we had to let them run out into the forest.
Velma shook with anger.
And one of them swallowed my gran!
Is this some new lingo the kids are saying?
He gobbled up my grandmother!
Understanding spread across Ravishing's face, followed by a burst of laughter.
I'm sorry. I've just never heard of that one before. Gobbled up my grandmother.
Patches giggled on top of Velma's head, which only helped to make her angrier. The Disney princess smiled disarmingly.
Calm down, dear. It was an honest mistake. It's not like I intentionally sent that crazed mongrel after your grandmother.
Why are you doing all this?
Ravishing grinned.
For the sake of the ultimate form of beauty. The wolves that attacked you were failed experiments. But now I am closer than ever to discovering the correct serum. And we can make everyone beautiful.
You want to turn everyone into werewolves?
Yes, lupinism is the next step of human evolution. Harder, better, faster, stronger.
So this is where Kanye got that line.
I won't let you do this, you ugly old hag!
Ravishing gasped, and a teeny tiny vein popped on her head.
You can't insult me with your words, for I know I am beautiful and cute.
But not for long. You won't be so pretty when we're done.
Something in Velma's blood spoke to her, but she didn't understand the language, so she just ignored it. There was no time to hire a translator right now. In that split second of distraction, Ravishing pounced at the young weaver girl. Not quite a cougar, but certainly a puma.
Watch out for her claws! Meow.
Missed me, pretty one.
Ugh. Fine, if that's how you want to play it.
Ravishing lunged at Velma once again. The metal claws whistled through the air like a canary, or some other chirpy avian creature, but Velma was already chanting a protective spell around herself. The weapon struck at the magical protection, sending a bell-like vibration through her.
Quit being such an annoying little harlot!
Or what?
Remember that voice Velma heard at the beginning of this fight? The one she couldn't understand? Suddenly, her brain used the adrenaline overflowing from the fight and had a bit of a beautiful mind moment, and Velma understood what spoke to her. The voice was the long-forgotten Golden Dragon King, who was, of course, one of Velma's ancestors. The Shaman King, the Golden Dragon King, shared his power with her, not unlike a nine-tailed fox in, say, a popular anime. Velma's hair pushed Patches back and shot way up at the ceiling, coiling like a snake, which was one of the common side effects of protagonism, as well as looking extra cool.
Ugh. I won't let you destroy everything I've worked for!
Suddenly, Ravishing took out a serum and injected herself. As she began to transform, Velma launched her ultimate attack in her Optimus form, inherited through the blood of the Golden Dragon King. The raw power was far too great for Ravishing to handle, and she fell to the floor like a bag of Disney donuts. Velma picked up a mirror and turned it to Ravishing, causing the werewolf ass to whimper at her own reflection.
Kill me! I am hideous!
Letting you live like this is a far greater punishment. Ravishing.
Suddenly, a couple of loud knocks echoed through the hall. They were coming from the wall? Velma walked up to it and, by strict convention, pulled on the nearby lamp, which was, of course, a lever cunningly disguised as a lamp. The mechanism of the lamp or lever, or the lever or lamp, whichever you prefer, made the wall slide to reveal a hidden dungeon cell. There was a beast, a monster, breathing heavily in it, its body covered with fresh wounds and bruises. Calling the creature a werewolf would have been like calling a hound a puppy.
My precious, my love.
This must be another one of her experiments.
The monster coughed and opened an eyelid with considerable effort.
I'm the serum. She used my blood to create those monsters, if you pardon my pun.
What pun?
There wasn't one. Anyway.
It's your fault Gran almost died!
Gran? Who's Gran?
Vel, calm down. Ravishing clearly used this poor, unfortunate soul to create the serum.
Velma sheathed needle and extended her hand towards the monster. And as it often happens in Fairyland, endings are sweeter than Thermatin. Look it up! This game is now officially educational! And soon after freeing the monster, Velma married him, and her kiss turned him into a rather average-looking son of a merchant from some village or another.